Hey friends, and welcome back to Bountiful Bridge. I'm your host, Bridgette Carey. And as I mentioned in the first episode, this podcast is about the various bridges that we cross throughout our lives. And one of those bridges is business. So today's episode is focused on what I would like to call, drumroll please, Bountiful Bridge business. I know, hold back on that creativity, right? So we will explore various topics related to marketing since that is my real job. And before we get started, if you need marketing consulting, please reach out to me. My company is Bridgette Carey Marketing. I will link the website in the comments below. I would love to help you build an affordable, smart, and strategic marketing vision for your brand. So today we're diving into a topic often whispered about behind closed doors, but rarely brought into the daylight. Yep, we're going there. We're talking about the B word. Not that B word. I'm talking about something even more taboo in some circles, budget. Don't leave. I promise this won't be boring spreadshirts and finance jargon. In fact, it's something that can help change the way you look at your brand growth. So I wrote this original essay on bridgetcareymarketing.com. But for now, let's dive into the first segment and talk about why budget is the dirty word in marketing. And so before I dive into that, feel free to go to bridgetcareymarketing.com and you can see all of this written out because sometimes it's helped to reference that. You know, I had a college professor who really shaped the way I think about marketing. And one day in class, he dropped the B word, budget, and there was a collective groan and kind of a chuckle across the room as if he'd said something scandalous. And honestly, not much has changed. Even today, I see business owners shy away from budget conversations like it's the boogeyman. But here's the truth. You cannot build something scalable and sustainable without confronting the budget head on. I get it. Budgets feel limiting. They feel like constraints. But in reality, a good budget is your permission slip. It tells you what's possible, where to focus, and how to grow intentionally. Think of it as a map and not a muzzle. So I once had a client come to me after trying 5 different marketing tactics over the course of a year, like social media ads, influencers, mailers, you name it. But none of it stuck, because it was all done on the fly and without a clear plan or a budget. So they were spending reactively and not strategically. And there's a really key point. No matter the size of your business, you have to view the marketing budget as an investment into your brand. Yes, you're spending, but realistically, you are reinvesting in your business. Okay, now that we've established that, let's talk about how to create your marketing budget. Or, as I like to call it humorously, segment 2, building your marketing budget without losing your mind. Seriously, this is where people usually panic because, especially if you're a small business owner or you've never had a marketing budget before, you think, how do I even start building a marketing budget? So let's break it down. And I promise that it's easier than it sounds. Okay. Step 1, know your revenue. If you've been in business for a while, look at last year's revenue. And if you're just starting out, make your best projection based on monthly averages. And if you've got investor dollars, hey, that's your starting pot of money, right? Okay, so step 2, after you've figured out your revenue, you want to try to allocate 7 to 8% of that revenue towards marketing. And yes, a few years ago, it was 9 to 10%, but that's gone down. When you look at inflation, rising cost of goods, it's all playing a part. But that 7 to 8% should still be an intentional spend. And I also want to note here that don't feel like you have to immediately spend that much if it's outside of the realm of your profitability, because that's the other key thing. We'll talk about it a little bit more. You want to make sure that you're profitable. And that's in essence the reason why you're setting up a budget. Okay, I hope that helped for step 2 and how to figure out how to gain or set your marketing budget. Okay, step 3, budget for both people and tactics. So you have landed on a number, but you also need to think that you not only have to budget for your tactics, you have to budget for an agency or any type of design work. And that's where I see a lot of small brands misstep. They pour money into ads and these tactics, but skip getting actual guidance. And don't get me wrong, I love a good DIY spirit, but marketing isn't always intuitive. It changes rapidly, and sometimes bringing in a strategist, even short term, can save you so much wasted money in the long term. And so when you're looking at your budget, you want to make sure that you outline what tactics you want to try and what tactics make sense. And if you work with somebody like me or another marketing strategist, they can help you identify where your money will be the most efficient spend. But, let's say you have a $5,000 budget. You want to say, okay, it's going to cost me $1,000 to work with a strategist or whatever those tools are, Canva, any type of tech tools that you use. You want to make sure that you are allocating for the tools and then for the tactic. So I know in my younger years, it was kind of surprising when I left sort of a bigger corporation and then I went to another small business and I was given a set budget. It was confusing because all of a sudden I had to allocate for those agencies and those types of things, and it got like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have an X amount of dollars to spend totally on tactics. I actually have to spend for that as well. I know that may seem like common sense, but for someone that has never dealt with a marketing budget before, it's really, it's not intuitive. So you have to make sure that you're not getting in over your head right from the get-go. Okay, so now you've identified if you want to use an agency, you want to work with a marketing strategist, and you know how much money you have to spend for your tactics. You're starting to button things up, right? You're starting to say, okay, this is how I'm going to spend my budget. And that leads us to step 4, which is revisit and revise your budget consistently. Your budget is a living, breathing document. It should evolve as your sales grow or shift. It should also respond to what's working and not working. It's definitely not a one and done. In fact, monthly and quarterly reviews are highly encouraged, along with regrouping after a major campaign or event. So every business has peak time periods, right? If you own a lawn company, your peak time for sales is going to be, over the winter, spring, building that business so that you can get out there and then produce for the summer. And then you're going to come back and you're going to wrap up in the fall. You're going to see if they need any other fertilizers or any winter prep, things like that. So you're going to have times within your marketing year that are going to shift and going to change. And so you're going to have a heavier spend in that winter spring time frame because you're ramping up and you're doing all of your marketing then, but it's going to get a little softer in summer, and then towards the end of the year you may have a little bump. So it's always really good to go back and say, okay, what worked in the first 6 months? And what do we need to either redo for next year Or what can we still do to help change or boost for the remaining months of this year, whether it's a calendar year or, it's however you set up your budget, right? Sometimes people do things based on a fiscal year, not necessarily a calendar year. So you really want to make sure that you are constantly taking a look at your sales and looking at your marketing tactics and how they have really impacted your sales. And if things aren't working, shift, change, move quickly. You don't have to lock yourself in for that full 12 months. You can shift and you can change. And of course, if you find something that's really working, all of a sudden you know that you've tapped into something where you can gain more sales. You're going to want to put more dollars towards something that's working, right? Okay, now on to the next step. Okay, so we mentioned earlier about peak time periods and specific campaigns that you want to run. And this is where we kind of move into a few more details that marketers like to call segmenting your budget dollars or segmenting your spend. And this is where things get a little juicy because it's not how much you spend, it's where you spend it. So if you take that total number, 20% should go towards outsourcing, and that would be like agencies, strategists, consultants. Someone's going to help you build your campaign. And then the other 80% is going to go towards those specific tactics, whether it's PR, an event, any type of social media, etc. So then as you start building this budget, you want to ask yourself some key questions. And taking the time to ask these questions is really going to be so helpful to you as you move forward with building a smart marketing budget. So some guided questions that you can ask are you launching something new this year? Or are you trying to gain new clients or keep the current ones happy? What worked last year that you absolutely don't want to mess with? I mean, one of my favorite rules of thumb is don't fix what isn't broken. If direct mail brought in 25% of your new revenue, don't slash it because it's not flashy. Build around what's working. And, just keep your eye on that. And then sometimes things can be a little flashy. Oh, everybody's doing TikTok. Everybody's doing this, doing that. And it may seem like, okay, I want to do this because I'm seeing so many of my competitors looking and saying, look at what I'm gaining, but you don't really know. And you want to make sure that it fits your brand. Where are your customers? And again, this is something where a marketing strategist or a marketing consultant like what I do can really help guide you, because it's not necessarily about what's quick, what's fast, and what seems like everybody else is doing. It's really what is going to help your business grow and then be sustainable. And it's not always what the latest and greatest is. Okay, and last but certainly not least, remember that talking about budgets builds stronger brands. I know it's tempting to just throw money at marketing and hope something sticks, but that's the surest way to end the year wondering where your profits went. Instead, talk about the budget. Make it part of your regular strategy meetings. Normalize it in your entrepreneur circles. Talk about it with your team. Even if you're a team of one, you really want to dive in and pay attention to these details, because being real about money, what's coming in and what's going out, is what helps brands grow with confidence. So that's it. The B word is out in the open. Doesn't feel so scary, right? But if you're sitting there thinking, I really need help figuring out my budget and plan, you're not alone. That's exactly why I'm building some exciting new offerings to support small businesses who want clarity without blowing the bank. And I'm so excited to share that with you very soon. Until then, if you want to talk about budget strategy or book a work session reach out. I'm here to help. So either drop me a message in the comments, or feel free to book a session on my website. It's bridgettecareymarketing.com. And I have a mantra for you. You didn't think that Bountiful Bridge business wouldn't have a mantra, did you? Okay. The mantra is strategic investment over the B word. Remember that. Okay. So this was a short but sweet episode. It was my very first episode of Bountiful Bridge Business. I hope to do more of these. I welcome your questions, your comments, discussion, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And remember, smart growth always starts with a smart plan. I look forward to seeing you next time on Bountiful Bridge. Have a great one.